Ask almost any woman what she's looking for in a relationship, and she'll be able to tell you all the red flags. He doesn't communicate. He's emotionally unavailable. He love bombs. He's inconsistent. But here's the question I want to ask you today. Can you recognize the green flags just as quickly as the red flags? Because I've noticed something after years of working with women. Many of us have become experts at spotting unhealthy relationships, but we haven't learned how to recognize the healthy ones. And that may be costing us more than we realize. Stay tuned. We're going to dig in. To the secret formula of femininity for women who want to live a more feminine, fun, and fabulous life. I'm Dr. Nicole Monteiro, your host on this weekly journey to unlocking your inner radiance, nurturing fulfilling relationships, and becoming the best version of yourself. Welcome back to the Secret Formula of Femininity. I am your host and guide on this journey to tapping into your feminine essence, Dr. Nicole. Today's episode is not about avoiding the wrong person. We've actually started to develop a lot of language around that. He's a narcissist. I'm being love bombed. There's breadcrumbing, and all of that is important and valuable. But today, we're going to talk about something different, and that is how do you actually identify and recognize the right one? I'm talking to so many women who realize that they want a healthy relationship. Either they've been in unhealthy relationships, they've gotten out of them, they've been in isolation or seclusion, and they are ready to dip their foot back into the pool, so to speak. But they want to be sure that they're not only avoiding what's unhealthy, but learning to tap into or lean into what's actually healthy. Let's talk about the culture that so many of us are immersed in. Ask yourself, when was the last time that you saw a viral video about emotional consistency or emotional availability? So much of the content that we consume is on the negative end, even if it's helping us to avoid what's negative. So most of us know how to identify narcissism or the signs of a narcissist. But do we know how to identify emotional maturity and really embrace it and want to get closer to it? So many of us know the fancy terms for all of the craziness that's happening on the dating and relationship streets in 2026. But do we know what the calm looks like, what the peaceful looks like, what the being held and loved right looks like? Would we be able to identify it, or would we pass over it thinking, oh, that can't be real because I've never seen it or experienced it? That's why, to me, the green flags conversation is where we need to be going next. The red flags are great, but who wants to keep running from something without knowing exactly what you're running towards or what safety looks like or feels like? Actually, somebody sent me an anonymous scenario. She called herself Jasmine. Like I said, I have a link if you guys want to send me your questions or so forth. But I love what Jasmine sent me. Jasmine says she's 39 years old. She is successful, right? So, ladies, it's not about not knowing how to be successful. She described herself as a successful attorney. She's a practicing attorney. She's confident. You got to be to have made it that far, right? She's smart. She says, though, in her relationships, she wants peace. And she tends to meet two types of men. And right now, she's faced with two men that she's met. The first man is what she described as charismatic. He's exciting. They have great chemistry. Remember, we talked about that in the last episode. That chemistry can just get you revved up thinking that everything is okay. So, this guy, they have great chemistry. But part of that chemistry she recognized comes from him being hot and cold. So sometimes he's all in, and it seems like he does the whole love bombing. I'm here for you. You're so amazing. We have this amazing chemistry. But then sometimes he's cold and she doesn't hear from him as consistently. He kind of has a different demeanor. You know, we can feel it when someone is distancing themselves from us. But part of the cycle that she's in is that he keeps her guessing. And as a result, she can't stop thinking about him. And then she feels like, oh my gosh, I got to wait it out. I got to figure out what's going on. It becomes like a challenge to her. right? Shout out to charismatic man, right? He knows how to just keep somebody on this carousel where you're going round and round, waiting to get to the destination. Now, then there's the second man. We'll call him Mr. Reliable. She said he's very reliable. He communicates consistently. He calls when he says that he's going to call. And he's actually curious about things that are going on in her career, things that are just going on in her life. She has some other projects and hobbies that she's doing. And she said, quote, he's nice, but something is missing. That's the key right there, right? A lot of times we'll say something is missing. So, number two, he's reliable, he's consistent in his communication. There's not all of that hot or cold. What he does matches what he says, but yet she feels like he's nice, but something is missing. Does this sound familiar? I know Jasmine is not the only one, and I'm glad she wrote in with this scenario. But one question I have for Jasmine is, what if the thing that's missing is the chaos that you have learned to associate with chemistry? We talked about that even in my previous interview with Sabria Mills. She used to go for that chemistry, and so many women did because it felt like a gut feeling that you felt in your body that said, "This person excites me. This is new. This is what I want to pursue." But what if that what feels like chemistry is really chaos? And what if chaos is keeping you stuck in the same cycle and you don't really know how to enjoy man number two, the one who's reliable, who shows you, not just tells you, and who is consistent with you? So this brings us to the green flags. We've talked a lot about the red flags and we're going to keep talking about them. But let's put some of the green flags in our vocabulary. Green flag number one is consistency. And it is what we think it is. It's when his words and actions match. So it's not like he's making these grand promises that he can't keep. Babe, I'm taking you to the south of France next month. Get your bags ready. And then he doesn't say anything about it again. This consistency is not making the grand promises, but it's simply following through on what he said he was going to do. It's those little steps and demonstrations of being consistent in your words matching your actions that should give us that excitement. Like, okay, I'm feeling this. I am feeling this. So, green flag number two is curiosity. That's right. This is when a person is what it sounds like, when they are interested, when they are curious. He asks thoughtful questions, not just general, oh, what's your favorite color? What do you like to eat? But like specific questions that are thoughtful about you and things that you guys have talked about. He actually remembers your answers. That's the key right there. So it's not just asking just to ask, but he's in tune with you the same way that a lot of us women, we're in tune with the men that are in our lives, but we don't always get that back in return. So, this curiosity means that he wants to truly understand you and get to know you. And this should be a green flag that you run towards because the person who wants to understand you, the person who is thoughtful in his questions about you and remembers the answers, is someone who is invested in really trying to know you and see if there's something to build. So that deserves a hand clap right there. So green flag number three is repair. That's right. This is the person who doesn't avoid conflict because we know there's nothing wrong with conflict, but he works through it. So instead of just getting mad, giving you the silent treatment, if you bring something up, he'll say something like, I can see why that hurt you. And he'll give you his point of view. He stands firm. He's not a pushover. He has his own boundaries, but he's not trying to punish you because you've brought something up or you have your own questions or boundaries. He's not a man who's going to run from you asking, where do we stand? Where do you see this going? He's able to be man enough to be honest about it versus trying to deflect or project onto you and say, well, I don't know. Why are you asking? And try to make you feel like there's something wrong for you wanting to get clarity. Green flag number four is emotional regulation. Yes, let's give a double bell for that. This is so important. We're talking more and more about the nervous system and how we have to regulate ourselves, but we also get regulated when we're with a partner who knows how to regulate their emotions. So, this is a man who doesn't become defensive or explosive when challenged. This is a man who's able to take an honest look at himself, who's able to take feedback, but also to give it in a way that's not overwhelmed or completely he's just crashing out because he doesn't like something. This emotional regulation should be something that makes all the bells go off in our heads because this is one of the core signs of somebody being mature. That way, if you all have a disagreement or you come up on life's challenges, which is going to happen if you're in an actual relationship with each other, you don't just have to run away, or the person, you guys don't have to just go into giving each other the silent treatment or going into this explosive mode where you just get so combative, you're fighting, you're arguing. That is a pattern that you just can't keep up. And I know for some of us, that argumentation, that conflict, it feels like excitement, especially if we've been around a lot of men who are more emotionally unavailable. I was at the podcast summit talking, and I heard David Shan say that sometimes he's not emotionally expressive with his wife. He said it in front of everybody, and that sometimes he recognizes that she would prefer that he get upset or he express some emotion rather than seeming shut off. So, yes, we want the emotional engagement. We don't want the complete crashing out, emotional immaturity, but the engagement and being able to have healthy conflict, that is so, so important. So for the healthy conflict and being able to work through it and not run from it. So the next green flag number 5 is respect for boundaries, y'all. You know, my whole platform is boundaries to bliss. So if we can't talk about boundaries, then we have a problem. Respect for boundaries. Like I alluded to a little bit early, this is when he doesn't punish you for saying no. He doesn't go into pouting and immature, stonewalling you, or stonewalling is like giving you the silent treatment, not talking, just completely disconnecting from you. He's able to accept and adjust to what your boundaries are. But here's the thing, only a man who has his own boundaries and his own willingness to stand on business can accept someone else's boundaries. So if you look at it, it's usually the man who is mixed up in his boundaries and what's going on with him who gets upset when you express your boundaries. And then when I say punishes you, again, sometimes it could be acting out, crashing out, exploding. It could be giving you the silent treatment. It could be a petty tit for tat. Well, if she said that she's not going to, pay for this, then I'm not going to do that. Or just because, she's not doing what I want her to do, then I'm just going to find something and get back at her. That is petty and that is immature. And it's not a respect for your boundaries. And it's also not being able to work through the conflict. So that green flag is when he's able to respect your boundaries and also respect his own boundaries. Green flag number 6 is a growth mindset. That's right. I was actually just talking to somebody else about this. I was on another podcast and we were talking about the importance of a growth mindset when we're raising our kids and in other areas of life. But this is so important for the person that you want to build a healthy relationship with. A man who has a growth mindset doesn't need to be perfect. That perfectionism, it can trap all of us. It can trap us as women. And then when you have a man who just sees everything as a fixed mindset, he's trying to be perfect, he's extra hard on himself, and therefore he will tend to be very rigid and hard on you. And that creates a lot of unpleasantness in the relationship. So a man with a growth mindset is actually willing to learn from you. He's man enough to be open to learning from you and also sharing with you what he can teach you. But all of that boils down to vulnerability and allowing yourself to be open. And that's where the growth mindset comes in. And finally, the green flag that I really want us to actually have at the top of the list and run to is tapping into your nervous system. Your nervous system is going to tell the story. So when you're with someone, you want to ask, how does your body feel around this person? Not necessarily how excited you are, because that anxiety and uncertainty and being on edge can be confused with excitement. But you want to ask yourself, do you feel safe with this person? Do you feel calm? Do you feel regulated? Do you feel able to be yourself, like authentic? These are the signs, and you'll feel it like in the core. This is something I had to recognize within myself. When I'm with my husband, I feel in my core of calmness. You'll feel it in your chest. You'll feel it in your core gut area. And also sometimes in your face, like if you're clenching and all like on edge, clenching your hands and your shoulders and your jaw area, you're not feeling safe. You're not feeling calm. If you're walking on eggshells, that's your nervous system telling you that you can't be your authentic self. Or if you don't feel respected, you feel it affects your self-worth and you will feel it in your body. So we're used to just looking for one sign in our bodies, which is those butterflies that we feel excited about, but we want to look for the safety, the calm, the authenticity, and knowing that we are loved and respected. Yes. So shout out to the nervous system for what it can do to help us to, it's something that we want to regulate, but it's also something that helps us to recognize where we are with the person. So I want to tell you about someone else who was in my inner circle coaching program, the Boundaries to Bliss Society. You can find out more at the show notes. We'll call her Monica. She gave me permission to share this because she is such a success story in terms of recognizing green flags. And these are the things that we work on in the Boundaries to Bliss Society. She had dated someone that at first she was hesitant to date. She had called him boring. She's like, this is just not what I'm used to. Yeah, he's nice, but where's the excitement? And when I probed deeper, and I was like, well, what's the excitement? Tell me, like, what excitement used to look like in your other relationships. It turns out that what she was calling excitement was actually drama. But with this man, there was no drama. There were no games. He did what he said, and he said what he was going to do. There were no disappearing acts. There was no hot and cold. So she had to get used to that steadiness and that consistency. There were no emotional roller coasters. And as she allowed her body and her emotions and just her expectations to be open to that and get used to it, she realized, and she told us this in the coaching community, and she realized this is the safest I've ever felt, like ever. Yes. So shout out to Monica for allowing herself to be open to that sense of safety. And what we realized as we talked through it is that she thought the relationship was boring. It wasn't boring, it was peaceful. But she had been so used to the chaos that she wasn't really sure how to tell the difference between the two. So before we end today, I want you to walk away with a tool to help you tell the difference between what you think is excitement, but it's really chaos, and what you think is boring, but it's really peace. So I want you to get a paper or something where you can make two columns. One is the column of what excites me, and the other is the column of what actually sustains a relationship. And I want you to challenge whether you tend to choose based on excitement or long term health. So, what excites you might be some of the red flags that you've heard about or that we've even mentioned. Inconsistency, hot and cold, making you feel like you have to chase and be on edge, right? Those things may excite you. But then I want you to write what sustains a relationship. And those are those green flags that we talked about. And I want you to notice, what do you tend to go for? Are you choosing based on excitement or long term relationship health? Because we know the goal is to get to that long term relationship health. and to find excitement in true connection and emotional intimacy. I want to leave you with this. Healthy love is not always loud. I'm the queen of subtle. And let me tell you, subtle is that thing that a lot of times we overlook, but it's the best thing for us. Sometimes healthy love will look like consistency, or it will look like accountability, or it will look like peace within your body and a feeling of safety and calm. And in part two to this episode, we're going to be talking about how healthy relationships actually grow. Once you know those green flags and where to go with them, you need to understand why healthy relationships require far more than just finding the right person. That's the first step, but there's more to it. So I can't wait to see you for that episode where we dig even farther. And I want to remind you, if you are looking for a community to explore what it means to tap into your feminine energy and embrace the softness while knowing you can still be in a healthy relationship and have healthy boundaries, I'm inviting you to my inner circle, the Boundaries to Bliss Society. This is my group coaching inner circle for women who want healthy boundaries, femininity, and healthy relationships. You can find out more about it at the link in the show notes. And of course, send me a message if you want to learn more about it. Thank you so much for joining me this episode. I hope some bells rang for you around green flags, not just the red flags that we're running from. And remember, stay soft, stay open, stay feminine. I'm Dr. Nicole.